is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And as always, we have ourselves a jam-packed show as we have a lot to get into in the world of volleyball, such as Poland winning the men's VNL. How did they do it? Who did they take down along the way to get to the gold medal match? And how were they able to win that first gold medal in the VNL? Also, the NVA playoffs are this weekend. Can the Ramblers repeat as champions? Can the Stunners make their fourth straight NVA Finals appearance? Can the Wild go wild in the playoffs? And can the Pythons take a bite out of the playoffs? And also, can the Matadors do some damage in the playoffs? They came up big in Event 5, as now they're in the playoffs, as they were the only team that missed the playoffs last year to make it to the playoffs this year. I look forward to seeing Larry B's Inland Empire Matadors in the playoffs. All that and more here on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Hand me a volleyball, set the net, because I'm about to serve up some volleyball action here on Set Point. Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of the SoCal Supreme Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday evening, Monday afternoon, Monday wherever you are listening from. Either way, you have made your way into episode 204 of Set Point. And without any further delay, let's do this. But first and foremost, Set Point would not be where it's at without IE Sports Radio providing the platform to go live on Spreaker. Please do follow them on Twitter, TikTok, and on Instagram at IE Sports Radio. Also follow them on Facebook if you still use Facebook. All you just gotta do is type in the word IE, then sports, then radio in the search bar. See our IE Sports Radio icon, just like us, and then boom, that's how you're able to follow us on Facebook. We also have a website, www.iesportsradio.com, where you could check us out daily, which is updated for all of our latest sports news. And we also have our IE Sports Radio blog, our Hall of Fame, our Fans of the Month, our pages dedicated to each podcast, our IE Sports Radio community forum, and also our merchandise shop. And in addition to that, we have ourselves a promo code, which has been extended from August 1st all the way to August 5th. And the code is, in capital letters, IESR Summer Sale, in capital letters, and then the number 23. So once again, that promo code is, all in capital letters, IESR Summer Sale, then 23. And if you use that code, you get 10% off your first purchase. And once again, it's extended all the way till August 5th. So definitely use that code while you can before it's too late. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports. In addition, IE Sports Radio has a sponsor, as Planet Jerky Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky is the official sponsor of IE Sports Radio, as Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, the single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, low in sugar, and high in protein. This is some of the best jerky you can get your hands on, and for a limited time, you can win 4 tickets to see the Storm, or 4 bags of jerky. All you just have to do is visit planetjerky.com, place your order, follow Planet Jerky on Instagram at Planet Jerky, and then DM them and saying that you bought your jerky after hearing this ad on this show or any show on IE Sports Radio, and then you will be entered in a raffle that ends on Tuesday, August 1st, 8 days from now. once again, huge shout out to our sponsor, Planet Jerky, premium brisket beef jerky, the jerky that's on a whole nother planet. So thank you to Planet Jerky, the official sponsor of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Without any further delay, let's do this. Thank you to Larry B, who is in the chat room. I really do appreciate you popping in. All right, let's do this. As we don't have too much to get into in the world of volleyball, as we only have the VNL to recap on the men's side, and we also have the NVA playoffs to preview, as I'll also be giving my predictions as well, just because I need to have a little fun with that. All right, so VNL on the men's side. So last weekend was the VNL, or this past Wednesday started the VNL on the men's side in terms of the quarterfinals, Wednesday and Thursday. And USA versus France was what kicked off the quarterfinals. So USA-France was actually a rematch from last year's VNL men's quarterfinals, as the U.S. took the opening set 25-21. Good start for the U.S. as they followed it up with another good set, as they took that second set 25 to 18, and suddenly USA is up 2-0 in the match over France. As Bishop asked me, he and Mikey Two Guns, the host of our Boston show, how did I get into volleyball? Well, I've kind of already answered that in the past, but basically my high school was always famous for having a good volleyball team, and every school that I've went to was big time in terms of volleyball. So that's kind of how I got into volleyball. So that's how that's to answer your question, Bishop, the host of This is KC Sports, which it goes on every Sunday at noon Pacific time, 2 p.m. Central time. That's to answer your question. All right, so back to the U.S.-France match. So it looked like the U.S. was about to cruise their way to a fairly easy match, but France rebounded in a big way. This was the match full of runs, as France took the third set 25-17. Then the fourth set, it was kind of a close set, as this was the closest of all of the sets in this match, as it looked like France was about to take the set, but the U.S. tied it up. They were down 24-21, but then they tied it up at 24 apiece. But then France took the last 2 points to take the set 26-24, and suddenly it went 5 sets. But then the U.S. broke a 6-6 tie and eventually took the fifth set 15-9, as they eventually advanced to the semifinals of the men's VNL. So it was a great win for the U.S. as they had to gut that one out over the men's VNL champions from last year. And I will give a lot of credit to France. They played with nothing to lose, and that's the most dangerous thing you could ever play against in terms of an opponent. So honestly, I give a lot of credit to France. They had a great run. They barely made their way into the knockout round, but unfortunately they just did not have enough in the tank. But I give a lot of credit to the U.S. They really righted the ship after dropping the third and fourth set. So, following that matchup, we had Italy versus Argentina. I predicted the U.S. was going to beat France. Now, this was kind of the tough matchup to predict. Italy versus Argentina. I kind of thought this was going to be... It was going to go either way, just because Italy and Argentina both finished with the same record. But in this matchup, I predicted Argentina would win. Oh boy. Could not have predicted this one any more wrong, as Italy just straight up blew out Argentina 25-17, 25-13, and 25-14. Ouch. Yeah, Italy just straight up demolished Argentina. And keep in mind, Argentina actually beat Italy the first go-around, so I was very surprised Italy just straight up throttled Argentina this time around. So honestly, I will say this, I was quite impressed by Italy this time around, but honestly, I did not expect Argentina to just come out with that matchup. I did not expect that to happen. So I'll give the benefit of the doubt to Argentina for honestly, I didn't expect them to be that bad, but honestly, I didn't expect a young Italy team to basically whoop them so badly. I thought it was basically going to be at least a battle. Like, we saw the first match, or at least I saw the first match, but I didn't expect, and I thought we were going to get a much better quarterfinal than that. But honestly, I did not expect that much of a whooping from Italy. So the fact that we got that whooping, I was very surprised that Italy brought out the belt and just spanked Argentina into the ground. So nothing against Argentina, but I just thought it was a very underwhelming final, or quarterfinal if you ask me. All right, next quarterfinal we had was Japan versus Slovenia. Now, this was also a sweep as Japan swept Slovenia, but Slovenia made Japan work for this sweep in the first set, as it looked like Slovenia was going to push Japan to the limit, but Japan was able to take that first set 26-24. Then that set the tone for Japan taking set 2, 25-18. Then Japan took set number 3, 25-22, en route to winning that quarterfinal. And then in the other quarterfinal, Poland, Brazil. Now, I thought this was going to be the quarterfinal of the first round. But unfortunately, I mean, it was better than the other two quarterfinals, but I will say this, Poland being the host team, keep in mind the VNL men's quarterfinals, or the men's championship, all took place in Poland. But I will say this, Poland really had the home crowd on their side, as Poland took the first set against Brazil 26-24. Again, it was a very tight first set, but it went the way of Poland, as that eventually set the tone to Poland taking the second set 25-21. And then eventually Poland took that third set 25-20 and the match, as they advanced to face Japan in the semifinals, while the U.S. found themselves taking on Italy. So I was 3 for 4 in my picks, which isn't bad. So I wasn't able to get all the picks right like I was on the women's side. Big deal. But in the semifinals, we had Japan versus Poland and the U.S. versus Italy. I did say that Italy versus U.S., or Italy, whoever won between Italy versus Argentina was probably going to give the winner between U.S. France a lot of fits, just because between Italy and Argentina, both of those teams were scorching hot. But the first matchup in the semifinals was Japan versus Poland. Now, unfortunately for Japan, this was actually the most surprising thing that happened. I actually did not watch either semifinal, but I actually did catch the replay. So, in warm-ups, Yuji Nishida actually got hurt in warm-ups for Japan, as he was actually not on the court for Japan in terms of the match. So, sadly, he did not play the rest of the match, and he did not play the rest of the VNL Men's Volleyball Championship in the semifinals, nor the next day. So that was a huge loss, as Yuji Nishida sadly was missed entirely for Japan, which was a huge bummer for Japan. But despite this, Japan really fought for their teammate, as they took that first set 25-19. That really stunned the home crowd in Poland. But the second set, Poland responded really well, and they needed to, as they took that second set 28-26. If they dropped that second set, it would have been a huge, more interesting outcome. And then the third set, Poland really took off the kid gloves, as they took that third set 25-17. And then the fourth set, Poland just finished off Japan, as they took that fourth set 25-21, advancing to the VNL Men's Volleyball Championship. VNL Men's Volleyball Championship. Go figure. VNL Men's Championship. So a great win for Poland, as they shook off a slow first set to take the match over a very talented Japan team. Then for the U.S. versus Italy, long story short for the U.S., I was keeping tabs on this match, but again, I couldn't see it because I was working. But the U.S. really cooled off Italy. Now, the U.S. faced Italy earlier, and keep in mind this is a fairly young Italy team. This is a lot younger Italy team, where if you compared the age group when it comes to the U.S. versus Italy, honestly, it's not comparable. Like, the U.S. has so much more experience than Italy, as the U.S. straight up swept Italy 25-19, 25-18, and 25-19, which basically kind of shows that the experience level between these two teams is at. The U.S. just has boatloads of experience, where Italy, despite making the semifinals, just did not have the experience that the U.S. had. But I will give this to Italy. The fact that they had such a young team and they made the semifinals in the VNL is quite impressive. So I'll say that right there. And Italy's future looks bright, not just in the VNL, but in terms of the Olympics. They'll be back on the big stage. So as for the third place matchup between Japan and Italy, I know third place doesn't mean a whole lot, but Japan took the opening set 25-18, and then second set, Japan actually had to rally back from 21-18 down to 23-21 down to eventually taking the last 4 points and taking that second set 25-23 and taking a 2-0 lead in the match. But then Italy really started serving the ball well. Like, Japan started serving the ball tough in that first and second set, but then Italy's serving came really much alive in that third set, and it also came alive in the fourth set, as it just was mistake after mistake for Japan, as this is where they really could have used Yuji Nishida. But they also got a big game from Kento Mayu. I'm going to probably butcher this guy's name, but Kento Mayaruya. Either way, Kento Miyarura. That guy. Either way, Italy took the third and fourth set 25-17 and then 25-17 in the fourth set. But then Japan had that extra fifth gear in that fifth set, as, again, they just got a lot of good tough serving from Kento Miyarura, as they got 7 service aces from Miyarura, which is big time right there. And yes, Bishop, good enough. Kenta Miyarura. And I'm sorry if I'm butchering his name. I'm sorry. But what can you do? But 7 service aces from Kenta Miyarura, which is big time right there. And I don't know if that's a record right there, but 7 service aces in a match is bonkers right there. As eventually Japan took that fifth set 15-9, as they got a lot of big games. And keep in mind, this was a Japan team missing its top player, Yuji Nishida. But regardless, Japan winning that bronze medal was big, because that's actually their first ever VNL medal. And I want to say that's actually their first medal in any sort of volleyball history, whether it's in the Olympics or whether it's in any sort of volleyball history. So I'm glad that Japan was able to finish on a high note. Yes, it sucked that they didn't have their star player, but according to what I saw, they actually had Yuji Nishida against Poland in the first match, and they actually wound up losing to Poland back in pool play. So would he have made the difference against Poland? I don't know. And honestly, I actually picked Japan to lose to Poland regardless of if they had had Yuji Nishida or if they didn't have Yuji Nishida. So either way, I had Japan losing to Poland, but honestly, them finishing third, I think, is a great finish for them. And honestly, the future looks bright for Japan. And I'm glad they were able to get to the semifinals, just because last year was kind of in the same boat for them. They got off to a blistering start, but sadly, an injury late in the pool play, if not late in the quarterfinals or sometime in practice, caught up to them, and it eventually cost them a chance to make the semifinals. So for Japan, the fact that they were able to right the ship and the fact that they had other players to step up was so huge. And the fact that they got 7 players from Kenta Mayaura was big time right there. So I think for Japan, the future looks bright for them. And then for Italy, I'll say this about them. Again, young team, their future looks bright. I don't think they're going to go anywhere. And if they keep their core players together, they'll be back on the big stage soon enough. I do not think that this is going to be the end for them. As long as their players don't quit after this whole thing is over, I think they will be back in the big time in terms of the VNL, and soon to probably be the Olympics, because next year is the Olympics, because 2024 is the Paris Olympics, which I think is cool. So I think for Italy, they took a lot of leaps and bounds to really impressing. And I will say this, I will gladly eat my crow of being wrong when it comes to Italy. I thought they were going to get bounced in the first round against Argentina, and I will gladly say I was incorrect, just because Italy, they proved me wrong. Just because you have a young team does not mean you're not good enough. I think that they rose to the occasion against Argentina, and they were the hotter team against Argentina, and they really just came alive, and they made big plays. So I will say this about Italy. They really impressed me, and their future definitely looks bright, and I'm excited to see what this team can do in the Olympics and in the VNL. So let's see what they could bring next season. All right, but that is that for the third place match. But now for the first place match, which is what everyone wants to see. USA versus Poland. Winner takes all. Winner is going to get their first ever gold medal, and then the loser is basically going to get silver. So the first set, it was back and forth, but Poland was creating some separation. They were serving really tough. Wilfredo Leon was serving really tough, and they also got a lot of great contribution from a lot of their right side guys. Their middles were doing well. It looked like they were going to take the set. They were up 24-21, but the U.S. did not quit. They got to within one. They were only down 24-23, but unfortunately, the U.S. missed a serve at 24-23, and the U.S. dropped the first set 25-23 to Poland. And then the second set, the U.S. was down 16-11, and it looked like they were basically about to roll over, and it looked like it was basically over for them. But then they brought in Aaron Russell. So Aaron Russell did not play in the first match. He didn't play, I want to say, because of an injury. And then he didn't play in the semifinals, which was really, really sucky. But they brought him in, and he made an impact. He actually got a block, which was big time right there. And then the U.S. strung together a couple points. And then one of those points actually was an unfortunate point for Poland, as they actually lost Matuzik Bieniek. I probably butchered the first name, but Matuzik Bieniek actually hurt his foot. He actually landed on his foot very awkwardly. It didn't look like it if you saw the instant replay, but he landed on the ball on his foot, and he just tweaked it very badly, and he could not continue. So he got up, he sprang up very quickly, and he made his way to the bench, but he could not continue. So he was out the remainder of the game, and I thought that's what really changed the dynamic. So Poland was up 16-13, but then eventually it kind of came crashing down on Poland, as eventually the U.S. just took that second set 26-24, and I thought that it was eventually going to be a quick turnaround. I thought that was kind of the turning point, and I was fearing that Poland was eventually going to collapse after that. But for Poland, I was very impressed on how they rebounded, as their new middle blocker, I did not get his first name, but his last name was Huber. He really took over quite well. Yes, he did have a few mistakes here and there, but everyone makes mistakes when you're getting thrown into the fire after one of your top players gets one of your top players gets injured. So the third set, the U.S. and Poland were tied 6-6, but Poland goes on a 3-0 run, and eventually Poland is up 9-6, and Poland is just building on that lead, and they're feeding off of the home crowd. You got to remember that the VNL Men's Volleyball Championship is being played in Poland, and there I go again saying VNL Men's Volleyball Championship. I just got to say VNL Men's Championship. Either way, the Men's Volleyball Championship was being played in Poland, And honestly, Poland was feeding off that energy from the crowd. And they were up by as many as 9 in set number 3. And John Speraw knew this, the head coach of the U.S. men's national team. He basically called off the dogs. He subbed out his entire team. And eventually, Poland took the third set 25-18, as Poland was one set away from winning gold. And then, fourth set, Poland got off to another good start as they basically just built off of the U.S.'s mistakes. And everything Poland did, they just scored at will. Even when the U.S. took Wilfredo Leon out of the equation, I forget the right side's name, but the right side's name, Kasaminski, he did such a great job. I'm just very impressed by how he was basically, how he just played. So, all in all for Poland, they just put together a strong game as Kaczmarek, that's his name, Lukas Kaczmarek, as Poland wound up winning the fourth set 25-18, and they won the match as they wound up basically winning the match in 4. They actually wound up winning off of a block, which is just an emphatic way of winning. I'll give a lot of credit to the U.S., and I like how they did not wind up challenging the final point. And this is a great tip of the cap to John Speraw. I'm glad he did not win. I'm glad he didn't challenge the final point, just because I'm glad he let Poland enjoy the moment of winning the national championship or the VNL championship, instead of just saying, "Oh, we're going to challenge just to make sure we have a chance to win that final point," which is what most coaches do. But I give credit to Speraw and USA, but unfortunately, Poland was just the better team. They looked a little bit more young and spry. And again, most of their players were just scoring at will. So I give a lot of credit to them. The MVP and libero of the VNL of the whole tournament was Paweł Zatorski from Poland. And then, like I said, Lukas Kaczmarek was the opposite, representing Poland. And then Aleksander Sliwa was the outside hitter representing the VNL. Micah Christensen was the setter, the best setter. Yuki Ishikawa represented as the outside hitter. David Smith was the best middle blocker, along with Jakub Kaczynowski of Poland. So that was kind of the dream team in terms of the award ceremony. So that's kind of the recap of the VNL on the men's side. And my final thoughts of it was a great match, and I give a lot of credit to Poland. I think they did an outstanding job of basically rebounding after they lost their middle blocker, which most teams would have folded like origami had they lost one of their top players. But for Poland, who had the crowd behind them, who basically rode the hot arm of Kaczmarek, the right side, I think they just really turned up the pressure on the U.S. And honestly, nothing against the U.S., but I just think that Poland just looked so much more polished, and they looked so much more young and spry, and they just were all over the place. Which, again, it's no disrespect to the U.S., but when you're Poland and you are the home team, you just have to represent, and I think that's what they did, and I was just very impressed by them. So I think for Poland, they deserve to win. And this is their first ever gold medal. So you have to tip the cap to them. And they were hungry for this gold medal and to win on their home floor and in their home country. So you got to give them credit where credit is due. For the U.S., obviously it was tough losing. They had a great run. But unfortunately, it just was not enough. They just kept missing serves when it truly mattered. And they just could not string together runs. And one thing they just could not do is they just could not clog up the right side. Yes, they took Wilfredo Leon away from the left side. He eventually was subbed out, and they got him out of the equation. But Kaczmarek was just on a tear from the right side. I was just basically saying the U.S. has no answer for Lucas Kaczmarek. He was just pounding right side kill after right side kill, and the U.S. just could not dig it. They could not block it. They could not do anything when it came to Lucas Kaczmarek. It was just basically him getting his when it came to that sort of thing. So sadly for the U.S., they just could not slow him down. They couldn't slow down the backup for the middle that got hurt in terms of Poland. And sadly, the U.S. just did not have the answer for Poland. But sometimes it happens. So they may need to get some more fresh arms and fresh legs. But honestly, experience was not the issue. And John Speraw is not the issue. I think he's a fantastic coach. And sadly, you just lose to the better team and the home crowd. I think U.S. will be back. I think they're getting progressively better. And I hope they could use this as a springboard for the Olympics, just because the Olympics are going to be oh so tough. And obviously we could see how tough the field is, considering if the VNL is going to be this tough, I'm really afraid of what's going to be happening come Olympics time. I think the Olympics is going to be so tough. So I really hope the Olympics can be basically their wake-up call. So I really can't wait to see what the U.S. has in store for us. I think the whole Final Four really impressed me. I don't think there was a team that basically told me I was not impressed. I mean, obviously the teams that got swept basically kind of were underwhelming, but you look at those three teams that made it to the Final Four. Italy was just sizzling at the right time. Poland and Japan, they had 10 wins. You wonder why they finished atop the standings with the U.S. Obviously, they didn't have enough points to basically overtake the U.S. in terms of the standings, but what can you do? So, overall for the whole men's VNL, I thought it was very enjoyable, and I hope they could have it back in Southern California for my sake. I really want to see the whole men's VNL, and I can't wait to see John Speraw again. What do I mean by that? You'll have to wait and see regarding that. But all in all, for the men's VNL, I think it is going to be something very fun, and I really hope it can basically grow as, honestly, if it can come back to Southern California, that would be great. On the men's and women's side, that would be so awesome. And it's another great year of men's and women's VNL in the books, as the men's and women's VNL never disappoints. So, honestly, I'm glad we have this thing on a year-round basis. I think it gets everyone ready for the Olympics for next year, and it keeps everyone busy. So, I want to say there's another international event happening later on, as there's the European Championship going on, as there are some teams partaking in the European Championship, whereas for the U.S. they've got the FIVB Men's World Cup, which will be on September 30th, but I don't know if they've got any other tournaments happening beforehand. I mean, they could, but doesn't look like they have anything in August for the time being, but who knows? But I can confirm that they do have something happening in terms of the FIVB, which obviously the VNL is something that's happening already, which is obviously affiliated with the VNL is affiliated with the FIVB. Let's get that out there right now. So we'll see what happens come August and then come September, but time will tell in terms of the international play. But that'll do it for the U.S./International Volleyball Player FIVB play overall, as we'll take a little break from that, and yeah, it's almost time for some NCAA women's volleyball, as we're going to be restarting the cycle of NCAA volleyball soon. But now's not the time for NCAA volleyball. We've got some NVA to go over, but we'll do that on the other side of this commercial break. So you are listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, sports fans. It's me, your boy Larry B, and I want to walk you through the world of sports. No, not just the mainstream major TV deal type sports, although those are important too. But let me be your guide through your journey of all sports, from college to the pros, the minors, and everything in between. Each week, we are talking sports galore with true diehards just like you from a hardcore fan's perspective that's sure to quench your thirst around leagues you may know all too well and some you may even discover here. That's right, sports fans. If you love sports of all kinds, enjoy hearing amazing sports stories, and respect all sports because you know how difficult any of them can be to play or compete in, then this is your show. Join me, your boy Larry B, on the defining moment each week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, and let the sports come to you.
Hello, ladies and sinners. Hello, sports fans around the world. Hello, IE Sports family. This is Cale Henderson, the host of IE Vegas, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio. If you folks are interested in sports in the Vegas area, if you're wanting to have a blast for 1 hour, every Tuesday night from 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, this is a show built for the Vegas sports fans, where we feature the Las Vegas Raiders, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the Las Vegas Aces, and the University of Las Vegas, Nevada Rebels. Hopefully, fingers crossed, MLB team coming soon. Either way, if you folks are looking to have a blast for 1 hour each and every week, tune in Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you folks are interested in Vegas sports news, go to our Twitter, at SinCities_IESR, and you can speak with me, the host, Cale Henderson, at Cale_Henderson on Twitter. At any time, be happy to reply. Always want to reach out to our fans. Again, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Well, what is up, Carolina Nation? This is John Felipe of the Carolina Cast, of course, the podcast of, by, and for the Carolinas, right here on IE Sports, your direct feed for all that is sports. And I'm reminding you to tune in Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern for the latest in Carolina sports, whether it's the Panthers that keep on pounding, the fly natures of the Hornets, the storming Hurricanes, the battle of the Blues with Duke and UNC, the fight of the Clemson Tigers, or the amazing atmosphere of any Carolina college. I'm talking App State, I'm talking ECU. I've got you covered. Once again, tune in for the Carolina Cast with me, John Felipe, Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Back with segment number 2 of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely do check out all of our amazing shows, such as Carolina Cast with John Felipe, going live every Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern. Also check out Sin City Sports with Cale Henderson every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific Time. Also check out The Defining Moment with Larry B., the flagship show of IE Sports Radio. And also check out Chi-Town Weekly with Adam Karnick, which goes on every Monday, 1 hour before this show goes live primarily. You won't want to miss it, as we are in the second half of Set Point, as we only have one more segment to go over, as that is the NVA playoffs, as we basically have this weekend, as it's the last week of the NBA season altogether. Can't believe it's already here. The NBA is basically in its final final week of its regular season of 2023. So basically, the playoffs are here, and it's win or go home time for everyone. 8 teams enter, and only one team will be crowned champion. So the playoffs start on Friday, as we have 8 teams playing, and the whole playoffs will be at Long Beach City College, and everything will start at 10 a.m. So the first playoff matchup, and while I do these previews, I'll be giving out my predictions for all of these matchups. We will have the San Diego Wild taking on the Utah Stingers. So this is a divisional matchup where basically these two teams come from the same division, and basically these two teams split their seasonal matchup. The Stingers lost the first matchup, or the Wild took the first matchup back in Event 1, while the Stingers took the second matchup in Event 5. But now we get the final matchup between these two teams, as this is basically for the rubber match, and this is basically for a spot in the semifinals on Saturday. So my thing is, for the Wild, can they put it all together? And can the Stingers have more than enough players, or more than enough significant players, to the point where they will not have Russell Holmes, their player coach, or their head coach, or their owner, suiting up? That is my biggest question. If the Stingers can have all of their big-time players, like the Coburn brothers, as well as like Patrick Paragas and Reed Chilton and Shane Holdaway and all of those other guys, Zebra, or Reed or it's something Hoyt, but Zebra is what we call him. Inavel Ramiro, those type of guys, all those guys. If they could have, if the Stingers could have all their guys, their big main guys available, then the Stingers are a force to be reckoned with. The same can be said for the Wild. They have Brandon Rattray, Matt Carnegie. Both of those players were on last year's Las Vegas Ramblers team. If they could have those guys available, along with Joel Auerkamp, then honestly, the Wild are also a force to be reckoned with. I really think that this is a matchup that could go either way. I really think the Wild can basically, they could be a dark horse, and either one of these teams could be a dark horse. I feel that one of these teams, whoever wins, can give whoever wins the next matchup a run for their money. Which, spoiler alert, well, not the next matchup, the winner of Ramblers Matadors a run for their money. But I'm going to pick the Wild to beat the Stingers. I think the Wild have just enough in the tank. And don't get me wrong, I feel the Stingers definitely have a lot to work with, but the thing I think that they lack is experience. Now, obviously, Mikhail Hoyt, that's the guy that we call Zebra. Inavel Ramiro, Storm Fagata Tafuga, the Coburn brothers, Shane Holdaway, all those guys. I think they're all good, but if they don't have their experienced NVA guys, I think the problem will be is that the Stingers will lack NVA experience, and that's going to be a huge problem when you face the likes of Brandon Rattray and Matt Knigge. Now, there are question marks on if Matt Knigge will be there. I have been hearing that Matt Knigge might not be there because he will be trying out for the national Canadian team. But if he's there, do watch out. But whether he's there or not, I've got the San Diego Wild winning, because even if he's not there, you still also have Uchenna Afoa, who is a beast in the middle. So give me the San Diego Wild to win it. I would not be surprised if the Wild and the Stingers went 5. So give me that one, and give me that one in at least 4. So the next matchup we have is the Orange County Stunners taking on the New Jersey Freedom. That'll be at 1 p.m. All these matchups will be in Pacific time, for those that are wondering. And these will all be streamed on the NVA's YouTube page. Unfortunately, I have not gotten word if this will be on ESPN Plus or ESPN3, which is unfortunate. But hey, what can you do? Anyway, back to this match. Stunners versus Freedom. Alright, so just like the previous matchup, Stunners, Freedom, this is basically the rubber match. The Freedom took the first matchup against the Stunners in Event 1. Then the Stunners returned the favor by taking the second matchup in Event 5. Now we get the tiebreaker here. Who basically wins this matchup? I feel for the Stunners, they've made so many amble preparations and amble changes to their roster. I feel that they've got the advantage. They've got Spencer Olivier. They've got Grant Maroki in the middle. Those are 2 young guys who've made a tremendous impact. They've also got Nick West returning and Matt Hilling. Hui Ding has been a tremendous impact player at the libero position. You've also got Ignacio Roberts as well as Corey Chavers, who are last year's returners from last year's Stunners team that made the NVA finals. And then you've also got Matt Hilling, who returns, along with Nick West, like I mentioned. And then you've got a Stunners team who is hungry to make it back to the Final Four and then some. They returned practically most of their roster. They've got Joe Norman. They've got Tom Burrell, Matt Buffum. They added Derek Sullivan, who is a great setter. They've got Tim Furter. I want to say his name is Matt Seifert. And then they've got John Cunningham, the libero. I want to say he should be available, hopefully, for the Freedom's sake. If not, they will be playing Sam Schuldenberg. Here's my thing. This is such a tough matchup to predict. I really think that both of these teams are practically evenly matched, but I think the Stunners just have a slight edge over the Freedom. I think because they've brought in a lot of youthful talent and new, fresh talent, I think the Stunners get that slight edge over the Freedom. Now, obviously, the Freedom haven't really changed a whole lot to their roster, but it's done really well. And if the Freedom do push the match to 5, that could prove to be an advantage, because they've gone 5 sets a whole lot throughout this season. They're 1-5 in 5-set matches. Can they use that to their advantage? Of course. The Stunners have only gone 5 sets twice, both of which were against the Pythons, and they actually split their matches. But against the Pythons the second go-around, they actually didn't play a whole lot of their team. they actually shuffled around most of their players. But regardless, I think the Stunners have the advantage. And they have a lot of players that they could rotate around. They also have Shane Beamer with that tough, wobbly float serve, which is just so deadly. So for the Stunners, I really think that they just have the edge in so many areas in this matchup. So nothing against the Freedom, and I have a lot of respect for Carlo Edra and the rest of the New Jersey Freedom, but I have to give the edge to the Stunners. Like, I think they are built for the playoffs. That's my biggest edge that the Freedom doesn't have. I think the Stunners are 100% built for the playoffs. And the scary thing is that they were built for the regular season as well. They went 8-2, and one of their losses, they weren't even at full strength. And the other loss, they were also not at full strength. So hopefully we could see the Stunners at full strength and see their true potential come playoff time. So that is that for that matchup. Then we have the Las Vegas Ramblers taking on the Inland Empire Matadors at 4 p.m. All right, look. The Ramblers taking on the Matadors, everyone's probably going to disregard this matchup and say this is going to be a snooze fest. I really want to see the Matadors put up a big fight against the Ramblers. These two teams split their matchups against one another. The Matadors beat the Ramblers in Event 1 in 5 sets, while the Ramblers swept the Matadors in Event 5. Here's my thing for the Matadors. They're going to need to play some darn good volleyball. But they did add J.R. Norris IV. But for the Ramblers, they are really going to have to bring they're really going to have to bring their A game. The Matadors are going to have to bring their A game against the Ramblers. If the Matadors can bring their A game against the Ramblers, I think they're able to win. But against the Ramblers, they've got Jalen Penrose, who's playing well. They've got Felix Chapman. They've got Kevin Vaz, Gert Lisha, and it's either Gert Lisha or I forget, I'm blanking on the other setter's name, but Gert Lisha or it's not Tanner Maxwell, but it's someone else. It's Max something, or Matt West, that's his name, Matt West. It's either Matt West or Gert Lisha. Pick your poison at setter. Ryan Manugian has come into his own at setter position. And then you've got Kyler Presho, who's coming into his own at the middle blocker position. Ian Parrish is also seeing time at the middle blocker position. I really think that this Ramblers team is putting up points offensively and defensively, and they're also putting pressure on the service line. Meanwhile, for the Matadors, obviously J.R. Norris IV is performed well in Event 5, as he really performed great despite that being his first event following winning a championship with UCLA. They also have Cesar Medina, Antonio Anguizola, Christian Ventura has done an outstanding job running the offense. Here's my thing for the Matadors. They've done really well, but I just don't think they can stack up to a talented team such as the Ramblers. If it were some other team, maybe, but I just don't think they have I just don't think that their team. I just think they have a matchup problem against the Ramblers, just because the Ramblers have come into their own ever since they lost to the Matadors, and even when they lost to the Stunners, I think the Ramblers are just still on a whole nother level. So nothing against the Matadors. I think them making the playoffs and them being the only team that missed the playoffs last year to make the playoffs this year is so phenomenal, and I give them a lot of respect. But I just think the Ramblers are just so stacked across the board. I cannot pick against the Ramblers. So I got the Ramblers being the Matadors, and I will say this about the Matadors. I hope that they can continue to be great, and I hope that they can basically continue to keep this whole playoff streak going, just because it's great to see them back in the postseason. Because the last time they were in the playoffs was 2 seasons. I think it was like 2 seasons ago, if not 2020, during the COVID year, if I'm not mistaken. But regardless, it is great to see the Matadors back in the postseason. So it is a great feeling to see them back in the postseason. and this was back before they were the Inland Empire Matadors. They were the Ontario Matadors, which, FYI, that, contrary to popular belief, they are not the Ontario Matadors. They're the Inland Empire Matadors. So, I just gotta throw that out there. Alright, but that is that for Ramblers Matadors. Then closing out the quarterfinals, we have the Texas Tyrants versus the Puerto Rico Pythons. Now, this is an underrated matchup. The Pythons are 4-6, but that is a very misguiding 4-6, just because the Pythons didn't really have most of their roster for the majority of the season. They had to lean on Jair Santiago for a good chunk of the season, and they were 0-5 in their first 5 matches, but then in their 6th match against the Chicago Untouchables, they managed to lean on Jair Santiago. He had, I think, 26 or 28 points, which I think included like 24 kills, and I think two service aces and 2 blocks. I'm not looking at notes, I promise you. And honestly, the dude really willed his team to victory. And he even said it best. They needed that win in order to qualify for the playoffs. And if they didn't get that win, then it would have been so much more tougher. And ever since that win, the Pythons have really come into their own. They have won 4 of their last 5 matches ever since going 0-5. And their only loss was a 5-set loss to the Freedom, which I find that rather interesting just because the Freedom have been struggling in 5-set matches. So the Pythons are facing the Tyrants, which the Tyrants have had kind of their interesting ways in terms of their not having their full team. I feel if they have their full team, like Ryan Mather, Gianluca Grosso, and a good portion of their top guys, I think this is a team that could, hence the word could, actually put it all together and win it all. However, it's all depending on if they can take down the teams that they actually can take down. But for the Tyrants against the Pythons, I will say this is not going to be anywhere near easy, because the Tyrants are facing the face of the NVA, or one of the faces of the NVA, in Jair Santiago. Because if I had to have a Mount Rushmore of faces of the NVA, I'd have to say Jair Santiago, Felix Chapman, maybe... It's so tough to really put faces of the NVA just because I don't want to put like all outside hitters and all hitters in general. But Felix Chapman is one of them. Maybe Nick West, just because he's kind of been ingrained. Matt Hilling is the oldest player in the NVA. No offense because I used the O word, but he is the longest tenured player in the NVA. So maybe I'd put him on Mount Rushmore. So maybe Jair Santiago, Felix Chapman, I guess maybe Nick West or / Matt Hilling. And then I guess Jalen Penrose. Well, actually, no, I can't use two from another team, 2 from the same team. I guess that would be unfair. Joe Norman. So my Mount Rushmore, I guess I'll use that as a diversion segment. Joe Norman, Felix Chapman, Jair Santiago, and just so I don't use an opposite or an outside hitter, Nick West. I'm sorry, Matt Hilling, if you're listening. Don't hate me too much. So that's my NVA Mount Rushmore. But back to Tyrants Pythons. If the Tyrants think that this is going to be an easy matchup just because this is going to be a 4 versus a 1, they have another thing coming. I think this is going to be the Freedom versus the Tornadoes from last season. However, I think the Tyrants are going to pull this one out, but it's going to be a battle of probably who's going to make the fewer mistakes and which hitter is going to basically not get tired between Ryan Mather / Jake Langlois and Jair Santiago and whoever else is going to be the second best hitter. It could be Ishmael Alamar. It could be Ivan Fernandez. The list goes on and on. Obviously Jair Santiago is Batman, but who could be Robin? Anyone could be the Robin to Jair's Batman. That is dependent on who has the best hitting night any given night in terms of the NVA for the Pythons. But for this matchup, I've got the Tyrants coming out on top, but do not expect an easy matchup. Expect the Pythons to give the Tyrants everything and more. That's just my take. So, if everything goes the way that I have predicting, I have the Wild, Stunners, Ramblers, and Tyrants advancing. And then we would have Wild versus Ramblers in the semifinals. And then we would have Tyrants versus Stunners in the other semifinal. Here's the thing for Ramblers Wild. If Matt Carnegie is playing for the Wild, I give the Wild a good chance, just because Matt Carnegie and Uchenna Afoa, that is a tough middle blocker duo. And heck, Uchenna can actually play on the right side. But if Matt Carnegie is not playing for the Wild, I really have to give the edge to the Ramblers. Just because Brandon Rattray and Matt Carnegie facing their old team, that is revenge game written all over it for those two. And also, Nick England is playing against the team that he was an owner / he played for last year, or in years past. That said, if Carnegie is playing for the Wild this weekend, and he's not playing for Team Canada, or not trying out for Team Canada, and all those rumors were false, I've got the Wild beating the Ramblers in a 5-set thriller. But if Matt Carnegie is trying out and the rumors are indeed true, then I've got the Ramblers pulling out the win. So basically, my answer to who's going to win between Wild, Ramblers, without Carnegie, Ramblers are winning. With Carnegie, Wild are winning. I know I've probably PO'd a whole lot of Ramblers fans partially with this prediction, but that's kind of my whole prediction. I feel the Wild have that it factor, but I just feel that the Ramblers are still on a mission to repeat. And honestly, I feel that this matchup could go either way. I think the Wild are going to be much better than they were the first time around. And that first set, or the second set that they lost, that could have gone either way. I mean, 39-37, that is so tough. And the Wild weren't even at full strength. And I know that's not an excuse, because a whole lot of teams weren't at full strength, but I will also say this about the Wild. They do have their full potential. And when Brandon Rattray faces his old team, and if Matt Carnegie faces his old team, all bets are off when it comes to this matchup. It's because they're going to come motivated when they face their former team in the Las Vegas Ramblers, saying, we don't need you to win another ring. We can win our own ring with our own team because we're homegrown boys. But like I said, if Matt Carnegie is trying out for the Canadian team this weekend, then that's going to be an advantage for the Ramblers, because they're going to have their players feasting. They're going to have Kyler Presho feasting. They're going to have Jalen Penrose feasting. They're going to have Felix Chapman feasting. Kevin Vaz will be feasting. Ian Parrish will be feasting. Colton Cowell will be feasting. I forgot to mention him. He will also be coming into his own. So the list goes on and on when it comes to a lot of these players and them eating in terms of the offense. But you also can't sleep on Uchenna Afoa. I think everyone wants to see him succeed and whatnot, just because he's a fan favorite and a crowd favorite, so there's that. And now for the other semifinal, Tyrants versus Stunners. Alright, so remember how I said the Stunners are built for the playoffs? I feel that is the case when it comes to this matchup against the Tyrants. Now, the Tyrants probably and arguably have their best team this season. But here's the thing for the Stunners. They always seem to get progressively better, and they always seem to have pieces that they seem to replace. Everyone thought they were going to take a step back when they didn't have Jair Santiago, or when Jair Santiago left for the Pythons. They replaced him with Spencer Olivier, and they also brought in Tanner Woods. Honestly, and here's something that Nick West also told me. If you saw my interview with Nick West following the win over the Texas Tyrants, or the Stunners win over the Texas Tyrants, I'll say this. You have to have a lot of young guys to help out the older guys, because if you don't have the young guys to balance out the older experienced guys, you're not going to survive in the playoffs. And I think that's kind of the advantage for the Stunners. And you also got to remember that the Stunners are built for the playoffs. I'm not trying to say that the Tyrants aren't built for the playoffs. I just feel that the Stunners, having been to the finals the past 3 years, and then their coach, Matt Prosser, him being back in the fold, is built for the playoffs as well, just because he has that mentality. Like, if you've seen my interviews, he does not care about winning the division or being the number 1 seed or being the number 2 seed. He's all about being the final team standing in terms of the playoffs. He has that Kobe Bryant Mamba mentality, or that Michael Jordan mentality, or that Alan Knight mentality. He has that championship mentality. All he just cares about is winning. He basically says, what's there to be happy about? The job's not finished. Job finished? I don't think so. And I like that. So my thing is, for the Tyrants, however, if they want to win, they got to ride the hot hand of Ryan Mather, Jake Langlois, all those boys. Heck, they may even need Austin Matauatia's hot serving, as well as Gianluca Grasso's hot serving. And whoever's setting between Tanner Maxwell and Chris Hall, I think, for me, Tanner Maxwell is going to be the guy just because he serves really tough. That's just my opinion, but I would not count out Chris Hall. And then also Lewin Vekas, he could be a great addition in terms of the Tyrants middle blocker offense. So don't count him out. So for me, I will say this about the Tyrants. They do have the potential. I think they can win this matchup. I think they are definitely a team not to underestimate. I think that they do have that potential. And you also have to... There's one more middle blocker, that Joseph Grosh. Joseph Grosh is his name. You also got to look out for him. I think Vekas Lewin and Joseph Grosh are two guys that I think can really make an impact for the offense. But I will also say this. I think when it comes to the Stunners team, I think they'll just fall just a little short. Just because I think that the balance of youth and experience will be just a little too much. But I would not count out the Tyrants in any battle. But that being said, I've got the Stunners beating the Tyrants. I just feel that the Tyrants have a little bit more in the tank. Or the Stunners have a little bit more in the tank. I think the Stunners just have a little bit more in the tank than the Tyrants do. But do not count out the Tyrants. I just think that the Stunners are probably going to win this one in maybe 5. And then for the final, it's tough to really pick a clear-cut winner between the Stunners, or not the Stunners and the Wild, the Ramblers and the Wild. I mean, again, let's say Matt Carnegie does play. It's so tough to really play this out in a actual scenario. I mean, Matt Carnegie does serve the ball really well, and he has been an impact player for them. But even when they had Matt Carnegie against the Stingers, they wound up losing. They lost to the Stingers in 5, so I don't know. Regardless, it doesn't matter who I have winning between the Wild and the Ramblers, because in the end, I actually have the Stunners winning it all. Regardless of who wins between Stunners or Ramblers and Wild, I actually have the Stunners winning it all. That's my pick to win the whole shebang. I've got the Orange County Stunners winning the NVA Championship this year. Now, why do you ask? And to all the Ramblers and Wild fans who are probably writing their hate mail or putting their clown emojis into my DMs or tweeting out their clown emojis, I understand your frustration, and I understand why you think you're going to hate me. And all you Tyrants fans out there as well. But hear me out. I just feel that the Stunners are more built for the playoffs, just because they've added so much more youth and depth to their team. They've got Nick West returning. They've got Matt Hilling. Tanner Woods got his bad game out of the way. They've got Corey Chavers back in the fold. They've got Ignacio Roberts. Huiding is probably and arguably one of the best liberos in the league. No offense to Jose Malero, of course. They've got Spencer Olivier, who's done wonders. Calvin Sanborn sometimes will get some playing time, and he no longer has to be the serving specialist. He now gets to play the role of outside hitter. So for the Stunners, they have a lot of options. They've also got Shane Beamer. They've also got Kevin Gear at middle blocker as well, and Grant Maroki. Like, this is a Stunners team that is stacked across the board. Like, you can't go wrong with this team. And I think they also have not Grant Marushiki. It's something Marushiki. If I'm mispronouncing that name, I do apologize. But I really think the Stunners, in my opinion, are... Or Logan Zodovich, that's the other guy. I'm thinking of Eddie Mushikian. And they also have Damani Lenoir. I forgot to include him into the equation. Damani Lenoir, I haven't even mentioned him. They have Damani Lenoir as their right side as well. So, honestly, the Stunners are just so stacked across the board. Yes, they lost to the Pythons, but they didn't even unleash their full roster. They were resting their veteran guys, and they didn't even unleash the full potential of their roster. So, to me, I think the Stunners are winning it all this weekend, regardless of who they're playing in terms of the Ramblers or the Wild. But if I had to go on the spot, I guess I'll say the Ramblers will win and advance to the NVA Cup Championship. But regardless of who wins between Wild and Ramblers, I've got the Stunners winning it all this weekend. So I'm sorry to Ramblers fans, I'm sorry to Wild fans, I'm sorry to Tyrants fans, I'm sorry to everyone who's not a Stunners fan, but I've got the Stunners winning it all. So you could save your hot take. You could save this clip if you want, but I can already assure you I've got the Stunners winning it all. And if this does not age well, then y'all could find me and y'all could just tell me this did not age well and whatnot. Especially for next week's show. So, you know where to find me. My social media handles will be down below. But that is basically my prediction and my breakdown for the entire NVA playoffs. I will say this, if we get Ramblers Stunners in the final, it would not be surprising, because that was actually the finals from last year and the previous year, which it's basically the Boston Celtics and the Los Angeles Lakers. I really think that is the Boston Celtics Los Angeles Lakers final. I really think that the Ramblers and the Stunners are basically the Lakers versus Celtics in the NVA. I really think it is. Don't even debate it. So that's just my thing right there, but I just really think that it is the truth. So we've gotten it the last 2 years. It would not surprise me if we got a third year. So just my opinion. But that is basically the NVA previews / predictions. And just a fair reminder, my NVA Mt.Rushmore is basically Nick West, Joe Norman, Jair Santiago, and Felix Chapman. There you go. And ladies and gentlemen, on that note, that is going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that time to drop the beat, because I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate. You feel me? Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Set Point. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I appreciate you. Shout out to the chat room, Larry B, Bishop from This Is KC Sports, Davidson Crooks, Mikey Two Guns, Adam Karnick from the initial recording of this, and Patty Bax for all tuning in. I really do appreciate you all listening. This Friday, I will not be doing SoCal Supreme Sports Show. I apologize to those that were looking forward to it. Sadly, I am not doing it because this Friday and this weekend, I'm going to be at Long Beach City College for the NBA playoffs. So, if you're going to be at Long Beach City College, that's where I'm going to be at, and you can find me there just doing my thing. But for everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Thank you to our sponsor, Planet Jerky. We do appreciate all that you do for us, and thank you for being the official sponsor of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. I will see you all next Monday for Set Point. But until then, have yourself a great rest of the evening. Enjoy the volleyball action. I will see you all on Friday for